Good morning, and thanks so much for joining us for another edition of Leon County Today with Sheriff Walt McNeil. I'm Angela Green, LCSO's Public Information Officer, in for our Executive Director, Shonda Knight. Sheriff.
Angela, Happy New Year to you as well.
Now, I just got finished doing our year-end review. It's a long video, much longer than I would have thought it would have been when we had these time restraints, but what a year it's been for the Sheriff's Office.
We've accomplished a lot this past year. I'm so proud of the Leon County Sheriff's Office family and the great work they've done in our community. You know, each and every year we set some goals in terms of what we're going to try to do to achieve safety in our community, and I am just excited about the job our deputies and our staff do, including yourself and Shonda's staff. You guys do a great job, and just excited about 2022 and all the things we're going to do to continue to keep this community safe.
Right, and we've pegged it the year of service.
The year of service, and that's significant. One, we want to make sure that we in the leadership position of the Leon County Sheriff's Office serve the citizens of Leon County, but also serve our employees. We've got to make sure that our employees get the things they need, the resources they need. You know, we're talking about salary issues and all that, and that is what my responsibility is. And so this year of service is going to be something we really focus on, trying to improve the services we provide to our citizens, and also in terms of trying to make sure we improve the lives and the quality of life for our employees.
And talking about improving lives and especially health right now, the COVID surge has picked back up. So,
yes, you know, unfortunately, we seem not to be able to get away from this COVID-19 epidemic. But I will tell you that I am super proud of this community. We've had some challenges, but this community has come together as a family community and working doing everything we can. I'm happy to see that the number of vaccinations are improving, not only in our community, but also in the Leon County Sheriff's Office. We've seen some uptick in the number of people who are going out there and getting the vaccination. And we have to continue to do what the CDC says, that is, wash our hands, social distance, and get the shot.
Absolutely. Another big thing that developed in 2021 was our Anatomy of a Homicide report, and that certainly prompted a lot of folks to want to take action. Well,
we've known some of the things we found in the report. The report basically was a 5-6 year look at the homicides that have taken place, 141 persons killed over that period of time. And there has to be some reasons why, and that's what the Anatomy of Homicide does. It takes a deep dive in looking at the reasons we've had some of these deaths take place in our community.
Coming up next, we'll have a closer look at our Anatomy of a Homicide report and what it means for our community. But first, here's Sergeant Shade McMillan with our Crime Tip Tuesday.
Hello everyone, this is Sergeant Shade McMillan with the Leon County Sheriff's Office, and here's today's Crime Tip Tuesday. We carry around many keys for our home, vehicle, and other areas we want to keep secure. Here are some tips to keeping those out of the hands of thieves. Never leave a spare key concealed anywhere near the front door. That's the first place a burglar looks. Leave a key with a trusted friend or neighbor. Never give service people a house key. Arrange to have someone home. Never label house keys. If lost, they provide valuable information to a stranger. When using valet services, leave only the vehicle key with the attendant. It eliminates the opportunity to duplicate house keys. Stay safe.
Joining me now is LCSO Chief Executive Officer Chris Summers. Chris, today we are continuing our discussion on the Anatomy of a Homicide report and where we're going from here. You were a part of our team working on the report. Tell the audience about where the report is and what's our next steps.
So for us, this was really our first effort at taking an intuitive and deeper dive look at homicides within Leon County and Tallahassee. And we used about a 5-year, I think you said in the intro, we used about a 5-year snapshot, right. About 141 homicides. And the things that we were looking for were what were those themes? What were those motives? What were common factors that we could associate? Kind of taking it more from what were, as I said, intuitive and a hypothesis perspective into really what could we get down on paper and see from each of those cases. It was quite an undertaking. You know, we have to credit the Tallahassee Police Department for sharing an immense load of data with us.
Yes.
And some of those things that we found from there, it really caused us to start to take a look at kind of from our discussions in the very beginning. What are those common factors, the why of why these events are happening? And are we alone in that? Is this unique to Tallahassee, Leon County? Or is this part of what we're seeing nationally within violent crime and homicides? A very interesting component was the financial impact of a community
Yes, people don't think about that. You're
as a
absolutely
result
right.
of homicides. And we were lucky with the assistance of Steve Hoagland with the Florida Sheriff's Association, some of our own research, kind of looking at, what were averages, at least averages, because there's some, there's some wide variety of estimates, but essentially we kind of sat in at about a community impact of $6 to $8 million per homicide.
Substantial.
Substantial.
Chris, what are some of the findings that you found very interesting that our audience in Tallahassee, Leon County should know about?
The advent of utilizing the Florida Department of Corrections CNIS data,
Yes.
the evaluation tool, gave us the ability in ways to hear from those offenders themselves through that evaluation tool. And from that, again, hearing it seeing it through their lens and hearing their perspectives is something that we don't often get to see from our law enforcement component.
Right.
Looking at impacts on their life from their perspective, and it's not often something, as I said, that we get a chance to see and read and kind of think about from there. The nexus of age of arrest and how did that factor in so many of those cases. There's a thought process in criminology life course, and many of us have seen where the earlier there's an arrest in contact with the criminal justice system, the longer that person can probably be in that. And if you add in those other factors involving involving trauma, involving living within a crime-involved household, learning disabilities, behavioral health challenges, it just makes it that much harder for people to be successful in life.
Yeah, Chris, and that is absolutely great information and your perspective on that information. But now we've taken this information and shared it with the Leon County Commission, and they've now agreed to establish a status of men and boys. Talk about how important that is in this community.
I think what's so important about it is I think it will give us the opportunity once again to hear from those impacted, from those youth and from those community members that maybe we haven't listened in a similar way before.
Thanks, Chris. Coming up, how does the population growth impact crime in Leon County? We'll take a look. Stay tuned. We're back with LCSO Chief Executive Officer Chris Summers, talking about our newly released Anatomy of Homicide report. Chris, obviously the population growth impacts crime. What are you seeing and what are we seeing in our sheriff's office in the community with respect to crime?
With population growth, unfortunately, there's more availability for people to be victimized. So from our perspective, we really start taking a hard look at where is crime occurring, when is crime occurring, and then how are we sharing that information with not only our folks, but our neighboring law enforcement agencies, all in an effort to make our community safer. But growth is a good thing, but with it comes a challenge for us on how we manage that growth from a public safety perspective and meet the expectations of our citizens.
Yeah, the fact that we've got the increase in population, we've got a 32304 zip code that is a high involved crime area of our community, a impoverished area of our community. Chris, from your perspective, what kind of impacts do you think we're going to see with respect to that, those two issues kind of clashing right here in our community?
It always challenges us because within that 32304 is we have a sizable student population as well, and the student population is highly mobile and transient in nature. So from our perspective in looking at crime analysis and trends and patterns, we change our population out frequently So from a prevention perspective, when we have gained some community guardianship, then they move, graduate,
Right,
and move
right.
on, and there we start the cycle over again. So it's quite a challenge in particularly that zip code and a few others to build that sense of community, to build that, that partnership with community members on how can they help us.
Yeah, speaking of helping us, Chris, what can citizens do? You know, we've got our All In initiative we talk about. It's going to take all of our communities working together to solve these crime issues. They're not simply crime issues, they're poverty issues as well. So what can we ask our citizens in Leon County to do to help us?
One, not to think their input and their perspectives aren't valuable to us. I think sometimes they do think that we know everything, that we can see everything, and the reality is that we can't. We can crunch a lot of data, we can identify statistics, we can look at trends and patterns, but we really need the nuance of the community's input to balance that against what we see as far as data and numbers and calls for service.
You know, one of the things that I'm very concerned about is the next iteration of our Anatomy on a Homicide. How can our citizens learn more about the anatomy of a homicide, and what role do we want them to play with respect to getting engaged?
Right. So the easiest way to get a copy of that report is to go right to our website, leoncountyso.com, and go over to the All In tab. And then if they touch that All In tab, they'll see a drop down, and Anatomy of Homicide is one of those categories. There's the executive summary, the short read, and then there's a longer in-depth read. That, I think, is of value to any citizen that's really looking to help us get to that next level. Again, where they see opportunities to attend community meetings and interact with us, whether it's in traditional face-to-face, if it's social media, if it's Zoom, because again, I think it's so important for us to hear from them. How does crime affect them? And to help us fine-tune what are those tactics that we may use to make those communities safer. Who do we need to focus on? When do we need to focus on crime? And their input on how they think we might be the most successful in that.
Chris, we've got about 40 seconds left here. Talk about the technology. How can we continue to leverage the technology to keep fighting crime?
It's so vital to what we do, and compared to when we started some years ago, that it was pin maps, and it was writing things down on paper, and it has changed. Technology gives us the ability to force multiply our efforts. It gives us the ability really to communicate even with our own staff on a 24-hour, 7-day basis, to create more custom crime analytics products that years ago it would take a couple of days to get to them. They can look it up themselves.
Yeah, well, Chris, again, I want to commend you and your staff for getting the Anatomy of Homicide report out there. It is absolutely fantastic, and I hope the citizens get to read it. Thanks again. Coming up, we're flying high with our eyes in the sky. Our Deputy on Duty segment takes flight with the LCSO Aviation Unit. Stay tuned.
It really is an incredible job. I find myself very fortunate to have a job that I enjoy coming to work every day, wake up every morning excited to come to work. We have a lot of different missions at the Sheriff's Office Air Unit. We safeguard the people in the property of Leon County and keep people safe and whatnot, but we help the guys on the ground, whether it's patrol officers from the police department or the Sheriff's Office. Our job is to help them out and see things that they can't normally see.
So, probably the biggest piece of equipment on board is thermal camera, which lets us see at night. So we've got somebody lost in the woods, they can't find their way out, we can quickly go find that, or a fleeing felon that may have run off. That'll help us do that. That's a real handy piece of equipment. The communication gear on the airplane, that we can talk to every agency everywhere around, so we can go assist them with that equipment. Technology does change quick, just like our cell phones, the technology changes, and it does the same here, and we try to keep up with that technology. The air unit here started in 1974 with a Bell 47 helicopter. This is the helicopter that's on MASH. So that gives you some perspective of what we started with. We now operate the Bell 505 Jet Ranger. This is a 2020 aircraft equipped with all of the law enforcement bells and whistles. So searchlight back here. Searchlight obviously has been on the aircraft forever. When I started this, we used a pair of binoculars and a searchlight was what we used. That was the technology. Things have changed a lot in those years. So capable searchlight here. On the front of the aircraft, we have our cameras that are gyro stabilized that allow us to see in the daytime, and also using thermal imagery at night. All of this video that we take here, if it's part of a criminal case, is submitted as evidence. So now we have real-time video evidence just like body cameras or a dash cam there too. The aircraft are also all equipped with an extensive communication suite, which allows us to talk to every agency, police, sheriffs, fire departments within our geographical response region.
You're up. So generally we fly with a crew of 2 people, a pilot. The pilot sits in the right-hand seat. The guy in the left seat is what's known as the tactical flight officer. The pilot flies the aircraft and puts the aircraft into a position where the tactical flight officer can do his or her job. We're part of the same crew that are striving for the same mission, which is to accomplish whatever goal we're looking to accomplish or to help the guys on the ground. We're all law enforcement officers as well as pilots. So not only are we responsible for all of the things that a road deputy might be responsible for as far as training and education, we also have another complete separate job of being a pilot that we also are responsible for maintaining a whole bunch of standards and accreditation. So it's a pretty deep job. There's a lot that goes into it, and you have to be a fairly dedicated person to be able to get there. You'll spend months, if not years, learning how to use the proper equipment, learning how to fly in the way that we fly, which is a little bit different from your typical commercial pilot. So there is a pretty in-depth training process that we use here. And it's no different than if you were a deputy going through field training. We have the same kind of program here, but just for flight officers and pilots.
We have almost 60,000 hours of flight time, 187 years of law enforcement experience, 85 years of military experience, and 3 service branches represented in that. We have deputy pilots. We've got city police officers that are assigned to us as tactical flight officers. We've got 9 people here now. We are the air asset for this Region 2 in North Florida, so we cover our 13-county region. It's the whole panhandle up here, basically. We'll also respond outside of that if we get another county that calls. The sheriffs have mutual aid agreements that they'll help each other, and we're part of that response often.
So succeeding isn't always catching the bad guy. Sometimes it could be finding the missing person that's wandered off into the woods. Sometimes it can be, finding the overturned boat out in the middle of the lake.
When we find the lost person in the woods, the Alzheimer's patient that's wandered off, there's some great satisfaction in that when we have a positive outcome of that. Or catching the fleeing felon that has just committed some sort of bodily felony, and hurt somebody. And when we're part of stopping that means a lot.
We kind of measure mission success when a guy from the ground keys up the radio after the event is done and says, "Hey, thanks everyone. We wouldn't have caught that guy without you."
So what I like about this is we get to make a difference in our community in a very unique way with some specialized equipment and a specialized skill set. Being able to make a difference daily using those specialized skills, I think is a great thing. We've seen news stories where New York and whatnot, they'll send up airplanes that just take hours and hours of video and go back and look at it later. It's not what we do. We're doing the same thing as a guy in a car.
We have a very targeted aspect of the way we do our business, and we're not out there spying on people. We're not surveilling people. The first thing they always ask is, do we give out speeding tickets from the air? Which we don't. We don't really concern ourselves with those kind of tasks. We just assist the guys on the ground. Whatever they're doing, that's what we're there to help with. We have a vantage point that you just can't see on the ground. And there's things that we can see in the aircraft that you just can't see from the ground.
Really, our job is no different than a guy in a car riding on the road. He's looking at things, looking for the crime happening or looking for the lost person that needs to be found. We do the same thing. We just do it from a different vantage point.
Sheriff, every time I watch one of those deputy on duty segments, I learn so much. And for that particular segment, I was on scene with them. I got to go up in the helicopter, and who knew, if you're not in law enforcement, how much they play a role in solving crime and doing so much more?
Oh, absolutely. I tell you, I watched the aviation unit grow. The fact now that we have not only LCSO aviation staff on board, but we've got the Tallahassee Police Department with a person assigned to our aviation unit. And the number of cases that they solve, they don't get credit for making the arrest, but they are there. And I can tell you right now, Tallahassee Police Department, Leon County Sheriff's Office, we could not do the job we do in this community without our aviation unit.
I was proof of that, watching it in person. So that plays a role, technology, in the anatomy of a homicide. That's one of the big things. What happens next?
Well, as I said to Chief Summers, that our next step is we've taken it to the county commission. We're hoping now to get the city commission engaged with the county, and we will create a council on the status of men and boys. The report tells us that most of the persons involved in these homicides are male, and that many of those kids come from the 32304 zip code. And those are impoverished communities. And what we now have to have, we started this some 5 years ago. We asked the people of this community to partner with us in our all-in efforts. And this is quite honestly the culmination of that effort. We now have to have all of us working together to address these problems of homicides taking place in our community. They're not unique to Tallahassee, Leon County. They're happening all over the country. But I think we're unique in the sense that this community is like none other in the ability to come together to try and solve a problem. And I'm counting on the citizens of Leon County, our city and county commission, working with law enforcement to come together, put together a group of citizens who are going to work on this issue and work on it in a way that hasn't been done before. That is specifically trying to treat this as a community health problem as opposed to a policing problem. And a health problem means that we have to go out there and make sure that we diagnose it and then start to treat it. And that's what I'm hoping happens next.
Absolutely. Of course, we'll be keeping everybody posted on these next action steps and what's to come.
Well, thank you, Angela.
And thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you right back here next week. Have a great week.